Hey there, welcome to the Hot Slice, the weekly podcast brought to you by Pizza Today magazine. I'm your host, Jeremy White, editor in chief of Pizza Today, and I'm joined by Miss Denise Greer, who is Pizza Today's executive editor. Hey, Denise.
Hello, Jeremy. Good to have you back on the show with me. I've been either solo or with Josh lately, so it's nice to see your smiling face. If you're listening, he is smiling.
I am smiling for those who can't see, and yeah, good to be back. Had a nice little vacation, much needed, and
Yeah,
it's time to rock and roll. So it's always good to take a little time off this time of year as we head into the holidays. And speaking of the
yeah,
holidays, Denise, we all know how crucial they are in the restaurant industry in general and
yeah,
specifically in the pizza industry. We just came through the month of October, which was National Pizza Month, and hopefully our readers and listeners utilize that to its full advantage to help their business. We came through Halloween, which is a huge day for pizza
yeah.
sales. We're coming up on the day before Thanksgiving, which is another huge day for pizza sales. So we're kind of really in the thick right now of prime time for our industry.
Absolutely. And I look at like what happens in pizzerias, and this is like game time right now for
Yes,
pizzerias.
it is.
I mean, it's just busy with parties, busy with just a huge amount of people coming through your business at this time of year. So it's a
Mhm.
good time to be in pizzerias, but it's also the time where pizzerias really got to be on. They've really got to make sure they have everything tightened. This is your reminder. Make sure that you have those gift cards out, available, marketed, promoted, because you should be getting hit with people wanting those right now. And let me tell you that I want gift cards more than I want anything else. Like I want food gift cards more than anything because presents, I have expensive taste in presents, okay? I
Yeah.
want a I want a bicycle, I want a backpack, I want a tiny house. People can't buy me those things, but what you can give me is a gift card for my favorite restaurants.
Yeah.
So,
Just feed me is definitely the way to my heart, no doubt. Just feed me.
absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
Denise, what else though? As we're talking to our listeners here about preparing for gift card season, something else that pizzeria owners need to do urgently as we head into the end of 2024, the end of the year, is sit down and review your insurance policies.
Yes.
Sit down with an expert, with your agent, because most people, there's a lot of legalese, there's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of things that look good. And you see
Mhm.
the one page that shows you kind of a dollar amount on some of your coverages. Um, but unless you were actively involved in the insurance industry, you're not an expert on
Yeah.
this. Sit down with your agent and really, with the fine tooth comb, kind of go over your policy because
Yeah.
if there comes a time that you need it, and our guests today, we'll get to them, and
Yeah.
our guests, I should say, we'll get to them in a moment. But there may come a time that you need it, and often you and I, Denise, hear from pizzeria owners. We get emails from folks who said, "Hey, I had a break-in, or I had a fire, I had this, I had that," and
Hurricanes.
as
We
it
had
turns
two
out,
major
my
hurricanes.
yeah, right. And as it turns out, my coverage was not quite as robust and adequate as I had thought it was.
Yeah.
And it leaves you in a really bad spot when that happens. So I definitely urge everyone, and when they hear from our guest today, who actually had a great insurance policy, by the way, but they're
Yeah.
going to understand the importance of what we're saying right now.
Yeah, and insurance is not something that you can go after the fact and say, "Hey, oh, I didn't know about that. Can I add that?" This is,
Yeah.
it's vital for you to really look at what your needs are and what your needs will be with your
Mhm.
business because, you need to be reviewing those annually with your agent and trying to find the best solution right down to making sure your employees are paid. We talk about that a little bit when you're
Right.
closed during if you have a fire or if you have, some major, emergency, catastrophe, anything, you
Mhm.
really want to make sure that you're covered. We're going into winter power outages. Are those power outages covered? And will they cover your food? that spoils? Will they cover your employees that aren't getting paid for every day that you have to be closed because of power outages? So there's a lot to be thinking about, and
Mhm.
you know, so I brought our guests on because I have been seeing in the news a lot of restaurants dealing with fire. It's just, unfortunately, with a business or even your home, it's one of those fears you have that you hope never comes to realization. But when they do, you hope that you can manage them well and you can come out the other side better than before. I think that's what you hope with a fire. Um, but our guests today, they've had to rise up from the ashes and rebuild their business in a different location, and they went through
Mhm.
a lot of turmoil with that. So we have on the show today Chris and Angela Woodbeck from Mangia Macrina's pizzeria. They have a location in Little Falls, New York, and they're getting ready to grand open their re-grand opening of a Utica, New York location, where they had a previous location in New Harper's, New York. So it's one of those situations where sometimes that timeline can get extended when you're recovering from a fire, and they've definitely dealt with that, having mishaps and hoping that they were going
Mhm.
into their new location, but they can't get back into their original location. So what do? You have to find an entirely new location. And what do you do with employees? We get into all of that.
They've been on a wild ride, Denise. They're coming on 2 years.
Hmm.
2 years. They had issues with contractors who doesn't. They had issues with their landlord unexpectedly, even though they continued to pay their rent. So there's a lot to unpack here. Let's bring them on and get into the story.
Performance Food Service is proud to deliver high-quality products, innovative technology, and custom operational solutions to restaurants of all sizes across the country. The flagship division of Performance Food Group, with deep roots in the restaurant industry, Performance Food Service has been the exclusive distributor of the Roma family of brands for more than 65 years. This signature relationship has allowed Performance Food Service to become a leader in the pizza and Italian segment of food service nationwide.
Hi, I'm Genevieve Ruby, a fifth-generation dairy farmer here in Humboldt County, California. Did you know that 99% of California's dairy farms are family-owned? And we're proud to sustainably produce the milk that goes into quality cheeses you use to create your delicious pizzas. Thanks for helping make California not only America's #1 dairy state, but the leading producer of mozzarella too. We hope you enjoy this podcast.
So, hey there, Chris and Angela. How are you doing? Thanks for coming on the show today.
Oh, no problem. We're excited that you asked us to do this interview.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came across your story on Instagram, and I was immediately just like my heart went out to you, just seeing what you've been through with the business, and and how you've come bounced back and what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about your business and kind of what you've been through in the last little bit.
Well, for us, it's you know we would have never anticipated this day to ever come, right? So we got a call at 12:30 in the morning on December 11th and of 2022 that our restaurant was on fire, and it was you're woken up from this with this call and like, how can this be? Like, we actually weren't at the restaurant that day at all. We had my crew that was there. They closed up and everything, and I'm trying to go through all my things like, what could be possibly on fire? How could this have
Yeah.
happened? And we of course rushed over there, and and seeing the firemen just ripping our building apart, and trying to grasp what was going on, and not understanding, how could this be, um, but we, while we're standing there, the emotions are, wow, this is going to be a bit before, it's going to before we can open. We're not going to be open tomorrow, basically.
Mm.
We would have never anticipated it taking, you know, 2 years to get back open
Yeah.
now in a
In
new
a new
in a
location.
new location in the end. So my wife, Angela, can share on the experience of that too. But it's we it was heartbreaking to see our building, and it was just before Christmas. We had 10 employees that we like to take care of our employees all the time, and fortunately, I had insurance that covered 60 days of their wages. So
Oh,
it was nice. And I had a good policy in place at least for that.
yeah.
What did they determine was the cause of the fire?
We had it was an arson. So
Mm.
Wow.
while we were there, I was talking to the police officer. They didn't assume it until while they were into the process of fighting it, and the
I kept
police.
smelling gas.
I smelled gas, and the police officer's like, no, I think that's just their equipment they're using, and like it
Hmm.
was just. But I was like, no, that smells like gas. And I had a wood pile outside my window, and where um, that's where the fire started. So we're like, well, was there any electrical outlets here? Was there any equipment here? And it was all in this area where we didn't really utilize the space like we wanted to. It was like I always called it where the employees went and hid, and
Mhm.
so it's just like one of those spaces. So like, what could they have had plugged in, or um, it was, but the gasoline smell was strong enough. I was like, I'm on the other side of the restaurant at that point. All of a sudden, I hear, and the cop said no, and then the fireman goes, suspicious, and they just stopped what they were doing. It was just like, so I was right. Like this is like,
Hmm.
and then he started the process of bringing in the fire inspectors and stuff, and I was like, how do I, what do I do now? This is
Yeah.
12 in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning at this point. Her parents were in town visiting from Minneapolis, and they were actually supposed to fly back to Minneapolis we were supposed to drive them to Syracuse at 3 a.m. And that was so that's why we were all sleeping. Like we had to drive them 45 minutes to Syracuse and get them on a 5 o'clock flight. So the the what was I saying, with the fire, it was just baffling.
Yeah.
We couldn't imagine why somebody would want to do it to us because we're just normal people, just living our lives with the
Hmm.
pizzeria.
All the emotions when they said suspicious, art, and she went to Syracuse with her parents to drop them off, and um, I'm I text my architect, who's also a good friend of mine, who's really helped me, open my first location, second location. Like he's been great, and he was just a customer originally, and but he started doing drawings for me. He's like, look, this is what we're gonna do. Okay, you can do this, and it didn't charge me a thing. It's like, so
Wow.
Yeah.
but I
Wow.
text him like, "Hey, do you have any plywood?" They're telling me I have to. He's like, "I'll be right there." So he lives in River
Wow.
Falls, which is 30 minutes away. By that time it was 2 o'clock in the morning. Um, but the all the emotions of trying to figure out who would have done this. I, I feel like I'm good with my employees. I didn't have anybody that I didn't think was capable. Even the worst ones that left were never in that kind of a
Mhm.
scenario, and I wouldn't say worst ones because I don't know what the
Yeah.
worst, like what that even
Yeah.
means.
We didn't have any enemies.
Yeah.
No.
Was the arsonist ever caught?
Yeah.
Yes, he was. We were
Good.
the first of three fires. The only
Wow.
active business though, and we we had some pretty good video on the inside. I had a camera actually focusing on that window, and it was to see it all happen, like because he literally walked up to the window, and there's a whole side of the building with that where that wood was. He walked up to where the window was, dumped a 5 gallon bucket of gasoline on the back, and there's a liquor store across the driveway from us, and they had video, and we saw their video. It was and kind of pieced it together, and we were able to, the police were able to kind of figure out where his stops were. Like he literally he didn't have a gas can. He had a 5 gallon bucket, took it out of the back seat of his truck. So he had to fill that up. We're just doing all that investigative stuff, but just knowing, like seeing the truck that he was driving, like until they found him, I'm like, I don't know anybody with this type of truck. I didn't, I'm watching every truck now. It just heightened my awareness of everybody was suspicious to me. It was scary.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
did not know what was going on, but he did another restaurant that was, closed down and for sale for a couple of years. It's been kind of falling apart, and he did that space a couple weeks later, and I had like, you know, I had people that knew stuff. They're like, well, that was probably arson too. I'm like, oh, really? So this is probably related, like,
Yeah.
so now it's like it took the suspicion, and I should mention, when I asked the firemen who called it in, they said, well, somebody called it in and said they saw the owner's truck pulling away. So that was targeted
No.
at me. That night was targeted at me. Like in my head,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Like,
And this is a
I,
small
it's
town.
small.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everybody. Like, how do you like? How am like? So I didn't know what to say to the inspectors. I'm like, are they going to question me? Like, I
Yeah.
know where I was. Like whatever. And,
Yeah, I
it's
was going to ask that because a lot of times you're going to have to go through that process yourself
Yeah.
because
Being
they're going to
suspect.
make an assumption.
yeah,
Maybe you're looking to cash in on some insurance. Is this a fraudulent type activity? And they're often going to look at the business owner. What was
right.
that process like? Obviously, you had video showing someone else, which is immensely helpful, but it
it,
still
it
has
took
to
a little
be
bit. Yeah, it took a little bit to
hard.
get the video. Because I literally hooked up my generator, run my power to the, to the hard drive, and I'm in there with the flashlights. I had another food truck friend of mine come out. He's like helping me out, and we kind of got it good enough to at least see the video. I'm like, oh my gosh, we got something to
Yeah.
bring to the police department. And we when I talked to the police officer, and we're going to ask you some questions and this and that, and see if you
Yeah.
have, like, some might be abrasive, that might sound like we're accusing you, just let you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
It's
like,
standard procedure, right?
yeah, yeah.
They've got to
Yeah.
do their jobs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had nothing to hide, at that
Yeah,
point.
absolutely.
And
My big thing is, did that, because it was labeled arson, did that hang up your insurance claim? Like, did you have trouble starting to get your
that
claim?
was probably actually faster, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we had any issues with the insurance. I didn't own the
Nice.
building, so the landlord got that side of it.
Hmm.
I had some stuff that was damaged, and I had, loss of, they insure you based your premiums based on sales, but
Hmm.
your loss is based on net profits. That's what they,
Yeah.
we're in this restaurant industry. We know how we, what we,
Very lean profits.
Yes. We understand.
it's cash flow. It's not a profitable business. It's cash flow.
Yeah.
You're keeping New Yorkers employed.
Yes,
I, I,
exactly.
Denise and I hear horror stories commonly from people who maybe it was a tornado, maybe it was a fire, various things, and often people find out their insurance coverage is not as
Not
good as they had
adequate.
assumed it was, not as adequate, and then they're in a world of hurt. It sounds like you had pretty good coverage. Was
I
that
have
just
a
because you've got a good
incredible,
agent, or did you sit
yeah.
down and review your
I,
policy regularly? How did you avoid that trap?
I found out, like, my agent was on top of it more than, and there are three generations of insurance agency and I've been using him since I was just a food truck, and somebody recommended me to him, and I've been using him since, and he's always gone above and beyond. He actually brought over antifreeze because it was December, So he brought over antifreeze for the toilet so the toilets wouldn't freeze up. And so he brought
Wow.
RV antifreeze over. He's like, I'm gonna miss like literally that night he came over. It was like first thing, um,
We have an amazing community behind us.
yeah, and like I always he's and he goes normally. He goes, you have 18 months. Like, you normally only have 12 months coverage. You have 18 months coverage here. So of net loss. So, and that's rare. And then he told
Hmm.
like the adjuster was actually working for my landlord's insurance company and my insurance company somehow, and
Hmm.
he thought he didn't even know about the 60 days employee coverage. So
Yeah.
my insurance agent's like, no, he has 60 days, and here it is. So it's like,
Yeah.
so he didn't even know that was a thing, to have that. So I'm like, well, that's good because I got them covered. We had a nice the community. We had they begged me to set up a GoFundMe, and we gave that to the employees as well. That was all for so that got us through the Christmas season, got us into February, March for them. So they, some of them are still hanging on with us, and they actually drive to Little Falls, which is 30 minutes away, to help with that store. I got to figure out what I'm doing in that aspect because this is all coming in quick now. Of It's Little Falls is a small town, as you mentioned earlier. You've been through there, and the the we have to figure out who's going to run that store.
Yeah.
Yeah, but because those guys are key guys for our main store, so which was our New Hartford location at the time.
Yeah.
And we've just been against a moving target all along, trying to get this open. And the chamber came to us and we're like, what day is the ribbon cutting? So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
We'll go back to it's been a long process.
Yeah.
That was 2 years ago now that the fire happened.
Yeah.
And then we
Take
had
us through
we
that 2 years from the fire to trying to get to an because you're opening in November. Like
right.
as we talk right now, your opening date is
2 weeks,
November.
March.
So
Yeah.
the process of that was so the insurance was fine. The process of getting reopened was more codes related and what they were
Hmm.
requiring. There was a little bit of a char on a little truss that he made me find the engineer that I had to get an engineer to sign off on this little char mark, and I had to find out who built the trusses on this building that I didn't own. So I had to track down that and get them to sign off on it, and they weren't willing to sign off on it, but it was a lot of passing the buck. I wanted at the same time I wanted to make some changes in there, and if we're going to come back, we're going to come back better. And I wanted to add seats in there. I wanted to add like a little beer bar, a beer wine bar. Um, and that caused another thing with the codes. Like he decided to send that to the state because we're going to have more traffic flow all of a sudden because we have more seats. I don't know how that correlates, but if it's that easy, let me do that.
Yeah.
Um, but the so there was just one thing after another. I was like, fine, just give me the same occupancy I had. I just want the design then. I just want it to look like this because I can do that. He goes, oh, but what about your HVAC stuff? I'm like, what about my HVAC stuff? Well, we need to make sure your air quality is good. I'm like, we've been here for 7 years already. Air
Hmm.
quality, what? He's like, well, I want to make sure that your employees and your customers don't have to suffer from carbon monoxide with that big wood fired oven in there. I'm like, um, we've been here for 7 years. So I'm like, so it was just a lot of nonsense stuff. And, I'd go to 5-minute meetings with the town and they'd say, okay, we're going to meet again next month. So, this is, 3 meetings of, 30-day waits, for
Yeah.
minutes at a
3 month
time.
process.
So it was just a long process. And July of 23, I had asked my landlord, like, are we good with our lease? I know it's expired, but we need to work this out. He goes, I'll keep your rent the same. And we've been paying rent the whole time. We never missed a rent payment or anything.
Hmm.
Um, he goes, I'll keep your lease the same until September 30th, 2027. I'm like, okay, that gives us 3 years, to get back on
Hmm.
our
Yeah.
feet. So that was good. And so we just kept trying because if we weren't good, we were going to try to find a new location, and insurance was going to help us move at that point. And because they would that would be something that they would have done for us as well. It was you had your net loss, or they can help you get set up in a new location or fix up
Hmm.
whatever you need to do. So we just kept going, and with the process. And in December of that year of 23, I said, let's just build it just get me to be open in January. Let's just fix it the way it was, exactly the same. There shouldn't be any codes issues. You got everything else approved through codes. Um, I gave the key to the contractor to start working, and he he was ready to go. He goes, I can have this done in 2 weeks. Like, perfect. A week goes by, he hasn't started yet. Like, I call him up, I'm like, you didn't start yet. What, are you okay? Because, well, the landlord told me to hold off a bit. Like,
What?
hold off. Like, hold off. What do you mean hold off? Like, he goes, yeah, he didn't like something. You got to talk to him. I'm like, all right. So I give him a call and I'm like, what's going on? He goes, well, I didn't like the bill from the architect. I'm like, well, just give it to the insurance company. Like, if that's what you like, what's the big deal? Like, the architect was, again, my architect. He was doing, he thought he was getting billed for my side of the stuff, which it wasn't. Like, my architect
Mhm.
itemized everything for him, and
Yeah.
that was for him. And he didn't like he didn't like the bill. And I'm like, to me, it was nonsense because he already got the big check for
The big payout.
so.
Yeah.
So he's like, just hold off. I'm like, you want me to hold off on paying rent then for January? Like, because we're into December. I wanted to get open in January. How, so he goes, if you do that, you'll be hearing from me. I didn't do
Yeah.
that. I just kept paying. I got a notice dropped off at my Little Falls store that it was a notice to vacate by March 31st. I'm like,
Oh
that
my
came out of
goodness.
nowhere, like absolutely nowhere. So I did not anticipate that. I paid, my lease the whole time, not being open. We paid it the whole time, and even paid January's payment. So because that was automatic payment, that's how we did it.
Yeah.
We paid our lease the whole time, so we were just blindsided by that moment of receiving that notice to vacate. Um,
Hmm.
so, we didn't know what the next steps were at that point. We were like, where are we going to find a place now? Like, it's,
Yeah.
and now we're going into January, and we don't know. Like, we've been looking. I mean, we were looking up until that July point, and I think insurance would have helped us
In July.
move our stuff and move
Yeah.
everything, and we would have been open. And um, it was just timing was just not good at that point. Like, what did he do this for? Like, and
And
he wouldn't
middle
take
of
my
the
calls.
winter in upstate New York.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He wouldn't take my calls, and yeah, I got an attorney involved with it, which I never even
Oh
had an
no.
attorney. Like, it was just, but the the
The
the attorney told me, he goes, you know why you never had an attorney? Because you're too trusting. So
Yeah.
you're a nice guy. That's what he's like. Well, that's it.
Yeah,
Like, that's what I believe people should be that way a little bit.
for
But
sure.
yeah, but now I have an attorney, so that was
Yeah.
something about that. But so we were out celebrating our the New Year's Eve one night in Utica. They do a downtown thing now, and so we were down there, and my daughter's best friend, the mother is a real estate agent, and we knew each other a little bit, but not. Um, I knew her brother more because he owns a few restaurants in town, So,
Yeah.
and uh, we were talking. I told her what happened. She goes, "I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you find a place." And
Nice.
which was out of nowhere, And I didn't really know her well, and she really did help, And in the end, it's like this building that we're in now is going to be so much better. We have more parking. We have a bar.
Hmm.
We have a patio. I mean, it sets up a lot better. There's a little bit of a process to get in here too, but not as big of a deal.
And
It's
Utica's it's a bigger community than the New Harbor community you're in,
60,000
correct?
people. Yeah, 60,000 people. New Hartford, if you New York and vicinity, I think is, it used to be called Utica Rome area.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Would roam into that. So it was about probably 80,000 then, if you counted everything in around.
Yeah,
Excellent.
so obviously the light at the end of the long dark tunnel is that you will be reopening soon. You will be serving customers, and your business will be ideally thriving again quite soon. What's the plan to market your big grand reopening and get the community excited and back into your restaurant as soon as possible?
Uh, Marketing, I could do a lot better at, but it's funny. I just saw a meme today. It said the razor. It was like a guy cutting with a knife a razor thin slice of apple. So this is our marketing plan, right? um, no, our community has been begging us for it, So we have a food truck that we go out with all the time, and so that's what keeps us busy and has helped us afloat, for these 2 years. They Every time I'm out, they're when are you open? When are you open? So they're all anticipating it. We've had the media, our local news station came out. Um, the minute we put the signs on the building and lit them up, they're like, "Oh, can we do a interview with you?" Absolutely. So we're trying to get the word out every way we can. They want to help us too. Again, we're a tight knit community. Everybody knows us here. Um, the the
We were interviewed by Rome's.
we use a lot of the social media that everybody else uses too. That's been our strategy. We just the local news, or one of the local papers last week, did that article for us, about our opening coming soon, which was very well written. I can't ask her for any. It was a very well written article to share our story too. Um, the marketing wise, the anything that we can do is what we're doing.
Mhm. Yeah.
um, we got the chamber. We signed on with the chamber, the local New York chamber here, and they're going to do a grand opening. The mayor says I'm going to cut the hell out of that ribbon. So he's excited to have us in Utica. So it's like,
Yeah.
we're excited. We live 2 blocks from this location. It's such a perfect scenario for us that
Yeah. So
we're excited
So
for it.
the interesting thing is it was impossible for you to move back, and it made it impossible for you to move back into that original location with the fire. But hindsight, this new location is going to turn out to be an amazing spot for you. What are you most looking forward to with the new location in Utica, and kind of the features of that new spot that you're excited about?
This spot was a restaurant before. The space that we took over before was kind of like a bakery, but he had converted a photo shop it was what was there before into, a space that was a bakery, that before
Hmm.
we took it over as a pizzeria. Um, this space was a restaurant before. It's had its, great days, and it had some bad days, but this location gives us an opportunity to grow into the space. It has a full kitchen with Ansel system and hood and stuff that we're not even going to utilize right away. We're trying to reopen what we did before the fire, So
Hmm.
we always did wood fired Neapolitan style pizza. We we did some salads and appetizers and stuff like that, and that was it. Beer and wine. That's how we function. So, and that's what we wanted to get back to. Give the customers back that first, and with the opportunity to grow into the kitchen and maybe add some other dishes and see where that takes us. And then
Yeah.
we have a bar and a patio on this location, so we're excited for that. The the It just gives us, it's a little bit bigger space. Not It's just set up more like a restaurant. It looks like a
Mhm.
restaurant this time. Before, I always said we were a dentist office with a pizza oven. How it felt, very vanilla. It's just like we had the white drop ceiling, and just Paulie G even told me, he goes, you need to darken it up in here.
That's cute.
This is really exciting that you're about to reopen, that the oven behind you that we can see for the listeners of the podcast. If you're viewing the podcast on our Pizza Today YouTube channel, you'll see this oven in the
It's
background.
gorgeous.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Congratulations on the
Thank you.
upcoming reopening. I can't wait to follow up with you down the road and see how it goes. We're
Yeah.
really excited for you, and thank you for taking the time today to sit down and chat with Denise and I about everything you've been through to get back to this point right now.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. We wish you the best on the reopen and make sure you send me a little bit of news on that reopening and we'll put it on the
Yes.
website. So
Yes.
that's
Yes.
great.
Are we ready? We're not ready probably, but we're ready or not, we're doing it. So
Yeah, isn't that the restaurant business saying, ready or not, it's gonna happen.
I mean,
So
I've had my old crew that they even offered, hey, if you want to do like a old crew reopening, if you need help, let us know, you know. So it was really cool. Like they were the original crew that opened in our New Harper space in 2016. They've offered, and they would donate tips to a charity, and you know, it's really neat that they're offering that. You know, we need
yeah.
it. So.
Well, that's beautiful. All right. Well, good luck. And we love that you've been able to come back. You know, it was a little slower process, but you're back and we can't wait to see you open.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
See you
All right.
guys.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.